Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this evening's discussion on the film Gay India Matrimony by Deblina. Deblina is an old friend who I met at a film festival and has subsequently been meeting at film festivals. And Deblina, it gives me great joy to welcome you to a discussion of your film hosted by Bangalore International Center and Vikalp Bengaluru.
Thank you.
Also joining us today are Gaurav Ghosh and Shoyan Bhattacharya, both of whom are academics and queer rights activists and are also equal characters in the film Gay India Matrimony. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Deblina, I want to congratulate you on this absolutely moving and entertaining film that you've made and given us a glimpse into the lives of your friends and yourself on the issues and dilemmas around gay marriage. As is perhaps well known in this room, that even though Article 377 decriminalized homosexuality in September 2018, same-sex marriage is still not permissible under any of the marriage laws in our country, religious, special, or civil laws. Deblina started working on this film much before the judgment came, since 2013, and took about 5 years to make this film. And I think what is fascinating about the film is that it uses a very interesting trope, and that's why it's kind of different from a regular documentary. It decides to use the trope of setting or placing an ad for same-sex marriage, looking for a partner, marital alliance, in the newspaper, on social media, and with the marital agency. And the film tries to address these desires, difficulties, dilemma around gay unions in India. Deblina has been working on this subject for several years. She's been a filmmaker for the last 20 years. So Deblina, how did you decide to use this method of making the film? And did you already know you wanted to make a fun film, a fun with humor? Can we begin by deciding how you decided the subject and form for the film?
Let me first actually talk about how we decided to, make this film. So when we started shooting this film back in 2013, country after country, they were actually legalizing same-sex marriage. And we were debating marriage with many friends, with our activists friends. And as of now, same-sex marriage can be, legally performed and recognized in only 29 countries. Nationwide or in some jurisdictions. And if we count, like there are 195 countries, independent sovereign nations in the world. So within these 195 independent sovereign countries, there are only 29 countries where you can legally perform same-sex marriage. So anyway, at that time, friends in our circles or friends and acquaintances, they were exchanging, vows, they were exchanging rings, and also there are this, it's true for now also, true for these days also. So there was this general mahal of marriage amongst the community. So anyways, my friends maintain that marriage is not on the agenda of the queer movement because it is inherently oppressive and patriarchal, to say in a gist. Though not a believer of this institution, we found ourselves asking, can we at all reject a structure when our state doesn't even sanction us the right to be a party to it? So, how do we reject? We are at all not a part of it, and we are rejecting. So, and at the time, the visibility of queer communities had increased significantly by that time in the mainstream media, on social networking sites, and urban centers of the country, if not in villages or in rural parts. So what would it mean to be gay and want a court-sanctioned marriage? in India, whose highest court has, at that time, in 2013, recriminalized homosexuality.
Yes.
So, especially in India, which has a multi-dollar wedding industry, we have, and for marriage is not just a personal act between two individuals in this country. It's an economy which spins around this institution. From marriage portals to food to caterers to jewelers to whatnot.
Yes.
So maybe it is a political act which makes certain individuals eligible, for certain benefits. Say for property rights, pension, insurance, etc., everything. So it is also socio-cultural in the way it reflects one's class, caste position, and often family prestige. Rights on the marital alliance is made. Like if Ambani weds Adani, something like that. So in such a climate, how do queer individuals fit into these systems, fit or not fit? And as we are pondering over these questions in 2013, the Supreme Court ruling on Section 377 came on that day, 11, 12, 13, we call it, on that date, when Supreme Court recriminalized non-normative sexualities again. So around this time and in this climate of many debates and discussions, we started thinking about what happens when two queer individuals want to have a public wedding,
right,
with same-sex partners. That is what our film proposed to probe and how it all started. So this film was another attempt at creating a platform, and this time our highlight was the institution of marriage and the politically charged engagement of queer individuals with it. A film that will try to probe the state, family, society's attitude to the desires of people wishing to marry within the same sex, especially in the light of the Supreme Court judgment that has recriminalized homosexuality. So we hope our film posed some, fundamental questions.
I think what was very important about the film is that though it approaches the topic through so much humor and all of you are also laughing, it's a very, very serious matter, complex matter, difficult matter. On the one hand, you have family, community, society, and acceptance that you're looking from these three. And on the other hand, you have your state, laws, and the benefits that state accords to heterosexual married couples, and just the rights that you don't get, the equal rights that you don't get. And I think the strength of the film is that it's been able to explore all these layers. And you've been working on this subject for a very long time and made several films exploring different kinds of forms, both documentary and fiction. So before we move ahead, I'd like to show trailers of two of your films. Yeah. So Raghu, can we start with the documentary and The Unclaimed?
এমন সুন্দরভাবে শুয়ে আছে দেখলে আপনিও বলবেন যে এরা কিছুতেই বিষ খেয়ে মরতে পারে না।
আমি ভাবতে পারছি না যে এই অক্ষরগুলো, এই শব্দগুলো, এগুলো লেখা হয়েছে জাস্ট একটা কিছু ঘটার আগে।
ওদের বাড়ির লোকেরা ওই সবাই মিলে ওদের মেরে ফেলেছে।
আমার কোনো জিনিসটার কথা কখনো মাথায় রেখেছিলে? লাইফে কোনোদিন মনে রাখোনি কিসের সম্পর্ক আমাদের?
আমার কাছে এটা অস্বাভাবিক সম্পর্ক। আমার দৃষ্টিভঙ্গিতে তারা রোগী।
এই ক্যামেরাগুলো বন্ধ করো ভাই, ক্যামেরাগুলো বন্ধ করো।
আমরা সব সময় সাংস্কৃতিক পার্থক্যের আর্গুমেন্ট তুলি আর কি। এটা পশ্চিমে হয়, এটা ভারতবর্ষে হয়। যখন তুমি কলকাতা থেকে নন্দীগ্রাম যাবে তখন বলা হবে যে এটা শহরে হয়, গ্রামে হয়।
যে মুহূর্তে শুধুমাত্র ওই ছেলেদের মতো চুলটা ছোট ছোট করে কাটা, তাকে নগ্ন করে পাড়ায় ঘোরাও, লোকজনকে দেখাও তার জননাঙ্গকে।
আমার ভয় লাগছে সেই দেহ দুটোকে বেওয়ারিশ করে রেখে দেওয়া। সমাজের এই কঠোর স্ট্যান্ডটা, এক্সক্লুশন, ডিনায়াল, এইটা আমাকে ভয়ও পাওয়াচ্ছে কোথাও একটা।
ওরা ওই রকম একটা সাবমিশন রেখেছিল যে আমরা মরে যাওয়ার পর আমাদের একই সঙ্গে দাহ করা হোক, এটাই আমাদের শেষ ইচ্ছা।
এবং ঘটনাচক্রে বোধহয় একসঙ্গেই ছিল। বেওয়ারিশ লাশ হিসাবে জ্বালানো হয়েছিল। তো বেওয়ারিশ লাশেরা শুনেছি অনেকগুলো এক জায়গায় হলে সব একসাথে জ্বালিয়ে দেওয়া হয়।
Can we see the fiction trailer also now? So, yeah, you want to say one line about it, Deblina? That this was a film you made subsequently. It's called If You Dare Desire.
Yes, If You Dare Desire was made on this, this real life incident of And the Unclaimed.
আরে তুই পিনকোডটা ঠিক লিখেছিলি? ওই সূর্য,
আমার নাম ময়না।
না, তোর নাম সুচেতা আর আমি স্বপ্না।
পুরুলিয়ার বাড়ি, দুই বোন বিপদে পড়ে সাহায্য চেয়েছে, থাকার জায়গা নেই। কিন্তু পুলিশ কেন? আরে শোন, মানুষ দেখলে তো কিছু আমি বুঝি।
অপর্ণা।
বাড়ি কোথায়?
বনগা।
কি প্রেম মাইরি! হ্যাঁ,
যেদিকে তাকাই শুধু নদী, নাম ধরে কেউ ডাকছে বুঝি, শহর জুড়ে আলোর আধার, দু চোখ আমার যায় জ্বলে যায়। কাকে ঠকাচ্ছ? হ্যাঁ,
বলে দে না সবাইকে। হ্যাঁ, দে না বলে। নেক্সট।
কেউ আসে আর কেউ চলে যায়, কেউ আসে আর কেউ চলে যায়।
Thank you. That was beautiful and very interesting to see just how different the forms of the two films have taken. I will come back to talking about forms in Deblina's films. But before that, I'd like to invite Shoyan and Gaurav to share some of their views. Shoyan, I believe that you have been involved in this film from the very beginning, from 2013, when Deblina decided to make the film. And you have been very candid in the film, sharing stories with your mother, yourself, and humorous. I was very moved by this one line that you say in the film: "In making the personal political, I did not face music." And I don't know why that line really stayed with me. And I think my first question to you is that what has been your journey since being part of the film? Um, and what part did you imagine the film would play in your journey?
Oh, that that's a that's a tough question. So I think when Debolina and I started talking about the film, the paradox here in the sense that the circles that we move in are seemingly very progressive, right? So and uh, and seemingly very accepting of new ideas, of different forms of desires. However, one also wonders if there are limit points to those modes of inclusion. So I think for me personally, the film was a provocation to test this mode of inclusion. Like, you have accepted me for what I am. It seems so, at least from based on whatever you are saying. However, what if I make my desire public? What if I make my sexuality, my sexualness public? Are you still going to be my friend, or are you still going to be intimately attached to me? And so that was the that was the provocation that we started out with. So then the question was, like in India, of course, as Debolina was already pointing out, right? Marriage is that institution. It's such an it's perhaps one of the most enduring institutions that no movement has ever been able to overthrow. Like, we know that it's patriarchal, we know it's oppressive, but people still get married, and progressive people also get married all the time. Be it a registered marriage or any form of marriage, people get married all the time. So then we wanted to sort of attach that institution with our desire and sort of ask, like, if we decide to claim the public through this very public institution, are you still going to be with us? Now, but then the flip side to that question is also the fact that what are the consequences of going public? Because we are not just free floating individuals, we are also implicated in kinship networks, like our families, for instance, or the places where we work. So for me, that question of making the personal political, what are the consequences that not just me, but those who are intimately connected with me going to face? And that question was directly connected to my mother. um, like for a long time we were living in this joint household with uncles, aunts, their families, and so for me and my mother, the negotiation was always like, yes, she knows about me, but should the rest of the family know about me, and why does it matter, right? But the moment we bring up marriage, that's when everybody comes to know. Now, here is then the stake of the personal becoming political, because I have my life where I am going to pursue all my work, and I might go away for work for various reasons. For instance, the very fact that like we started discussing and then shot, the sequence that you see it at my place was shot in 2014. And exactly 2 years later, in 2016, I went to pursue my PhD. So I was gone, basically. And here this person was living alone. And so what kind of consequences would my decision to go public have on her? So then it doesn't remain a thought experiment any longer. It has very material consequences of those with whom we are intimately connected. So there were these ambivalences and contradictions. So as much as theoretically, personally, politically, I'm opposed to the idea of marriage, and as much as I want to provoke people around me to test their inclusion, but what are the real-time consequences of that kind of testing? Was the ambivalence that I aspired for the film to highlight, and it does highlight those ambivalences. And the other thing that I wanted to bring up was that over the years, I have been also thinking about, like, for instance, in this current political context, you know, while we are talking, various states in India are institutionalizing the love jihad law, right? And so then we cannot have, and that was my disagreement with the professor, you know, Paramita Chakraborty, in that in the sequence which was shot at Jadavpur University. For me, over the years, like in 2013, I had a very black and white idea of marriage. Like, I am opposed to marriage, and therefore I want to, but I want to see it as a thought experiment. But right now, I have a more, I think, a more ambivalent take on the idea of marriage, because who is getting married and what are the stakes of that marriage? Because we are talking about a time where these laws are being institutionalized, where, you know, talking about purity of blood, and interfaith marriages are being criminalized, and couples are being murdered at times, and even, you know, being and intercaste marriages, like, you know, the Khap panchayats, the way they have been conducting themselves. So the imbrications of caste and, you know, and faith with the idea of marriage. So there are just so many stakes to the idea of marriage. And secondly, if one really goes into the history of same gender marriages, like within our queer and trans communities, one of the first instances of marriage were these two women who were working as constables in the late 1980s, Leela and I think the other person's name was Urmila, and they had taken vows in a temple, and then they lost their jobs. So in other words, people have been marrying outside of not like institutions as well. Like, sometimes if people want to exchange vows, they do it even without any kind of institutional sanction. So the fact that Debolina was talking about people exchanging vows, the rings, like these do not have institutional recognition, but people still aspire to that. So then, as activists, as academics, how do we read these kind of desires and these aspirations? I don't think we can have those kind of blanket, you know, like very black and white binary ideas about for and against. So I think those are the.
Has there been any kind of reaction after people have seen you in this film, which was unexpected for you?
I mean, there are two kinds of reactions. I think with the with social media, I think people have also learned to be very politically correct. So
Well, it's going to be very incorrect also, yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, incorrect. I think I sometimes welcome political incorrectness, because then that sheen of hypocrisy goes away. I'm talking particularly about progressive circles. I'm not even going into, you know, the larger. I'm not speaking about the people outside of the echo chambers and things like that. So people have largely been like very supportive, and I had this very interesting conversation with you know, a Marxist feminist, and she saw the film, and then she told me that she absolutely loved it, and she wishes that I find a groom and I get married. So then I was quite amused by her reaction. I asked her that but then you are someone who is anti-marriage, and you talk about Engels, and you talk about property and marriage, and then why are you accepting of me? Like, why are you making this exception for me? Then she's like, we are trying to diversify. So then I found very problematic, because then you are being very tokenistic. Because if you really think of me as an equal citizen, then you should also not infantilize me for who I am. We should be able to have that frank conversation, you know. And but outside of that, people have also felt very inspired. Like, I have had, like, you know, young kids, like, you know, who are like 17, 18, they've seen the film, and we have had long conversations about how to approach the idea of coming out. How do you speak with parents? And this is what I keep telling them, that it's always a process. There is no like one particular single moment when you come out and it ends. It's always a long conversation. And I tell them about my own journey with my mother as well, that how it's always very complicated, and it takes, it's very reciprocal, that it's not, you just don't give information, because this is about your life. So how do you take that journey? And it takes time. So don't get carried away by, you know, advertisements that there is one fine day and you just come out and everything is done and dusted. It's always, yeah.
May I bring in Gaurav into the discussion now at this point? Gaurav, your one-liners are hilarious in the film. I especially love your conversations that you have with the professor. Dekho, 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 and there are many such instances. You are also a performer, and I think you have borne your identity on your sleeve much more than other characters in the film. So I think my question is that 5 years after the film, what has your experience as a queer rights activist and performer been in getting greater acceptance?
Okay. So thank you, Vikalp, for organizing this screening and inviting all of us for panel discussion. With the permission of Raghu and Sandhya, I am also asking the audience that I understand Bengali and Hindi. So some people actually ask me this question. That's why I'm saying, so feel free to ask questions, at least to me in Bangla and Hindi. So, so it's not only English. So because these are the only 3 languages I understand somehow, so and somewhat, so I can talk in these 3 languages. So yeah, so I don't think much has changed in my life. I was always like what I was 5 years back, and after the film, I have remained the same more or less. My mother has opened up a bit, like in the sense now. If I mention a guy friend's name, then I could see that she is trying to see whether that friend is my romantic interest or not. So I think that's the one thing. My relationship with my sister has been like completely, it has gone into that silent part, in the sense that we don't speak about or talk about, discuss about these things at all. Though my both my nieces, so they are young ladies now. One is an adult, so they are quite. Though my sister, you can imagine that, so my mother has always given this argument that she is married. She's a middle class married Indian woman. So for her, it will be very difficult to accept a gay brother or a queer brother, and to talk about to talk about queer things with her in-laws. So, but my sister, I think, in the film, it was a shock, because Debolina was thinking that it will never happen. But it happened actually. And through my sister, when she said, I think it's a hormonal disorder and maybe medical treatment would actually cure you or something. So, so all these things were very much, so things have changed in my personal life, in the sense like my mother has opened up, and I am now having more like a comfortable relationship with her. And I am getting her, I have been doing it for a couple of years, because Sappho for Equality is the only organization that I know in Eastern part, and particularly in West Bengal, which publishes literature in Bangla. So I used to get all those literatures published in Bangla to read. So she has been a teacher. She loves reading, so she reads everything. She tries to understand, and so this is one. Politically, I'm also like quite a politically active person, with left organizations. So in my organizations, we have screened Debolina's films, have been screening Debolina's films, and because I think Debolina is one of those rare filmmakers who make political queer films, in India, regional queer filmmakers. So we have been talking. So I could see.
Name your organization, Gaurav.
So there is this one organization called Vikalp also in Delhi. So where we have people from all kind of left parties, organizations, not only a particular left political party. So, but more idea is to believe in social transformation through justice, through equality, like that. So that one, and I also work with, I am an active member of Student Federation of India, SFI. So SFI has been screening Debolina's film for a long time, and we have been trying to actually do a kind of a workshop, but then the JNU fiasco happened, and I have, and the CPIM, some comrades, we have watched Debolina's one film. So it's also interesting to see that how left also, mainstream left like CPM or its mass organizations like SFI or IDWA is actually looking at the question of homosexuality. Like they have queer comrades now. Like I'm very happy to see many queer comrades are coming out, not only in West Bengal, but also in Kerala. I'm sure in other parts also they are slowly coming out. So, and it's also interesting that, how left also addresses this question, and particularly of marriage, this thing. So one-liners are in the film because my supervisor, Professor Shogata Bhaduri, is also quite a funny man. But the whole idea, Debolina briefed us that, this is going to be a kind of a political film, but we want fun, we want humor, so that, everybody can sit and watch this film. And I think that we try to keep it. But if you also listen carefully, whatever Professor Bhaduri says in the film are quite political. For example, when the film ends, in the credit, during the credit roll, he asks me that, that what kind of marriage you like. And I said, Gandhar Viva. And he said, what is this Gandhar Viva? I said, you exchange garlands, have fruits and have sex, and your Viva is complete. Your marriage is complete. Union is complete. And he says, but where will you get a cave? So that's a kind of quite an environmentalist kind of question, because he says that, if you want to go to a forest, if you want to live in a cave, where is the cave? Where are these? So we try to bring in our own political, understandings and affiliations, while just very casually, very funny way, talking about marriage as such.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this film is so rich in its one-liners and in its dialogues. This is one film that really made me feel that I could speak Bangla and understand Bangla. Deblina, you chose your characters very, very well. But I think this is the first time you've put yourself in as a character. So tell us a little bit about that. Like, why did you put yourself in? Were you apprehensive, nervous about doing that? And how was that experience been for you? Is Deblina missing?
No, I got your question, but I think my internet connection is coming and going. It's kind of unstable.
Okay, we can hear you.
Can you please repeat your question?
You decided this is the first time you've put yourself in as a character in the film.
Oh, so yeah, so there is this song by the Jamaican singer Elephant Man that when you hear a lesbian getting raped, that's not our fault. Two women in bed, that's two sodomites who should be dead. So this is a song by the Jamaican singer Elephant Man. But a seemingly, a village, a remote village in West Bengal, India. However, the trailers you watched just now doesn't behave very, very, very differently towards, this kind of love. Right. So when we are shooting this film in 2013, Section 377 has been widely used to create a, climate of fear in the queer communities, to harass queer individuals. There are evidences that suggest that there have been very few convictions under this section, but its fear has, reached such mythical proportions that it is a potent weapon in the hands of the state to terrorize people with non-normative sexuality. So when you began planning for the film, 377 was still in force, still around. And I could not actually ask anyone else to talk about themselves as a queer person. And Shayan was already on board. And later we had Gaurav. So I kind of took the risk myself. Maybe that's the main reason to be in front of the camera.
No, I think what comes out is just how intimate the film has been, because like all your other films, you're doing the camera work yourself, and there is a second camera that's also focusing on you and getting your reactions. And I think the editing has been fabulous in how it has constantly put both of these points of view together. So the two questions I want to ask, one is about the camera work and the second is about the editing and music. The camera work, I noticed there's almost hardly any shots taken on a tripod in this camera. It's all handheld, and that's allowing you to get very close to the people and get intimate. And I think you've mentioned, and I know that you're also a still photographer and you're also a cinematographer for other projects and outside of your own projects. But did you see the camera doing anything differently in this film? Like, did you decide that you're going to really use it differently from your other films?
Yeah, we almost, it was like this. Almost never used. Maybe in Triumph's house, maybe for some formal interviews.
Maybe that terrace shot in Gaurav.
The terrace shots, yeah, for those kinds of, long interviews. But I knew these people. I know these people for years. So the camera actually was never, an obstacle as such. So yeah, and if you talk about editing, I have, I have a great respect for Obro as an editor, and as a friend as well. Obro involves himself in a project is something worth learning from. And not only Obro, as a director of documentary films, I have this great respect for we know the names. I have watched closely and worked with them, almost with all of them, like people like Arjun Gaurisaria, Shankojit Bishwas, Shoikat Shekhareshwar Roy, Amit Mohanty, Farah Khatun, all these names.
Yes.
So they're putting in a great amount of effort to edit complex materials like this, or for other films. How editors of documentary films, how hard they work. It's actually made on the editing table.
What I found amazing about this film is that a question posed by one character is immediately answered by another character, and it keeps on happening. So you kind of realize what everybody is thinking without having to hold the camera on one person for long. Yeah.
Right.
And the music, I think the music is very refreshing in this film. Like a lot of documentary films, as maybe the audience don't know, don't use music like the way, but I think Debalina has beautifully used music like it's a fiction film. And you can see that a little bit even in the trailer of the fiction film that she shared. And is this somebody you've also worked with for a long period of time? Do you give them a brief before the film, or does the music come while you're editing?
Yeah, during the film, and while editing the film, yes. So actually, when I started making films, I have seen and experienced that people used to think, that documentary is as really serious, but boring stuff. No? Yeah. Boring. You will get many information, you will be filled with information, you will be enlightened, but boring stuff.
No, people have told me, yours is not a documentary. I'm like, no, but it is a. It's like, but it's not boring.
It's not boring. So yeah, that was our experience. So maybe that is how I wanted to, incorporate music in documentary. And gradually it became a very important part of my work. And I have worked with very talented musicians and singers. I started working with my late friend Kalika Prasad Bhattacharya, then Moyuk Moinak, Shantojit Chatterjee, very young guy, very, very talented. So etc. Yeah, music has been, an integral part of my body of work and my life. Yeah.
I have another question for you, Debalina, that both Gaurav and Shayan have brought in immediate family members who they bring in as family, but you have chosen to use your Safo for Equality family to show your relationship with family and society. I'm just curious that how was the relationship with your parents or maybe your own siblings, and did you think about that, or was that a conscious decision to not bring them in?
Yes, that was in my thoughts, you know, to bring in my parents in front of the camera. But as Shayan and Gaurav know that from 2013, my father was not keeping very well from that time. So I thought about it many times, but at the same time did not want to push them much on this. So yeah, that is the reason.
And for now, I'm going to just announce to the audience that we have maybe another 5 minutes of questions with the panel, but please type in your questions. We have time till 8 o'clock to take all your questions. And the film is available for viewing till Sunday, 21st of February. So you have another 4 days to catch this absolutely wonderful film. I'm going to move to a question that actually I have for all three of you, and you can take turns to answer it, which is, you've looked at the institution of marriage as being very central in this film. But for a minute, let's pause and move beyond marriage. There are so many levels at which homosexuals demand, and I feel need, equal rights in society. So what are some of the other issues that are very central in the fight for equal rights, especially after the first step where at least homosexuality has been decriminalized now? Shayan, Gaurav, either of you want to take it? Okay, Shayan, yeah. No, okay, you're anyway muted. Okay, Gaurav. Yeah, go ahead, Shayan.
Oh, I could go ahead first, then I'll join.
Okay, Gaurav.
Okay, Shani, you want me to go first? Okay. So, so you were asking that what is, so I think like, you know, as a political queer activist, I feel that marriage is fine. We ask for marriage rights because there, you know, even Professor Paramita Chakraborty also talks about it. But that cannot be the focus now, like, you know, because I am doing a kind of a project work based in Varanasi, Delhi, and Calcutta. And what I'm seeing is that gay men, I am not interacting with queer women, but gay men in general, or non-binary queer individuals who identified as male at some point, they are all looking for marriage. And very interestingly, most of my respondents for this project are Hindus, you know, like the main religious respondents are Hindus. And the point is that marriage cannot be the objective post Section 377 of marriage rights. Like you get the right, but then you have to also question it at some point. But then there are other issues also that, you know, the queer communities of India should address to post Section 377. But what I think this is a kind of a bit of homo nationalism. This is a kind of a attempt from the Hindutva outfits that and that's why in the film also Shayan, Debolina, me, and we others, you know, whoever we have talked, we have also talked about the idea of capitalism and patriarchy also. Because why these people are constantly talking about marriage. And, you know, though in the film, my one of my best friends was interviewed, but she was not there. But we also discussed about it. You know, it's Swati Moitra. She teaches in Calcutta. And that what about that, you know, what happens if a Punjabi auntie, you know, I'm just generalizing, we are all generalizing during our conversation, from Pritampura decides to get her son married to another of Delhi, you know, the same rituals will happen. You know, they will just imitate what they used to do in a heteronormative or heterosexist marriage. You know, so, and perhaps the marriage industry or the market will really like it because it's all about money. So, you know, so I'm sure that I'm very confident that, you know, that there are ways where people are trying to push this marriage, but obviously in this present political situation in the country, this is getting a bit diverted. We are not really, because there are a lot of groups, online groups, where it says that I am a proud Brahmin gay boy. You know, that I'm proud. So you are constantly saying that you are gay and you are also Brahmin and you are also a man and you want to stick to that. I don't want a feminine gay boy to date. You know, so these othering within the queer communities have been there and it's still going on. But the question of caste, the question of race, the question of religion is now getting so complex. And these are all happening around the idea of marriage. Because everybody wants a companion. Everybody wants, there are some 8 or 9, I think, kinds of Hindu marriages, so they are all talking about marriage, but they are not, and they are also talking about these very existing, discriminations and biases based on caste, gender,
Yes, but I think a lot of that also, like even in the film, a lot of people are saying that no, it's not. Marriage is a very, very heterosexual normative institution, and we are not necessarily asking for marriage, but we're just asking for equal rights, whether it's in civil, or domestic partnership. So I think that's what I'm trying to understand. Shayan, is anything you want to say on that?
Yeah. A few things that I want to bring up. So, see, marriage, when we think about marriage, we obviously, the first thing that comes to mind is that it's not just between two individuals, it's about those families coming together, right? So that whole social institution that it is. Now, if we are talking about rights, I just want to bring up a couple of laws recently, which directly connects to your question. So the first is the Transgender Protection Act that this current government has passed. Okay, and so for a long time, the definition of trans that this government was giving was a very medicalized definition that it was giving, and it was saying that individuals will have to go to screening committees to prove their gender identity before they can get avail of any certificates. So now trans and queer movements across the country protested against it, and finally the certification weight was removed. But what was not discussed as much was the fact that this law criminalizes and punishes alternative kinship models that are already there in our communities. So specifically speaking, I'm talking about Hijra networks. The Hijra networks operate under the the Jamaat system, so which is a very alternate kinship model. And just to give one very common and specific example, a feminine person in like who is 13 or 14 often gets bullied at school, drops out, at family gets bullied for not being boy enough, man enough, and so gets thrown out of their natal families, and often they go and start living with Hijra households, and that is where they find shelter, right? So that kind of kinship model is already there, and this current government, by law, it is stating that that these kind of kinship networks are criminal, criminal structures, and it says that such children must be rehabilitated. So you see, under the garb of giving rights, it's actually medicalizing any kind of alternate gender and sexual identities, and it's criminalizing it, right? So on one hand, that is happening, and on the other hand, there is this whole idea of, oh, we have just got we have been decriminalized by the Supreme Court, and the next stop is marriage. So both are happening simultaneously. On one hand, underhand, you're criminalizing modes of living which are actually viable alternatives outside of family and marriage, and on the other hand, you're also giving rights. So there is that paradox that's happening right now, but we don't seem to be talking about that. So in other words, what I'm trying to say is that outside of marriage, I would wish for that we should be present in all the laws. For instance, when queer women face abuse in their families, why can't queer women be able to access the Domestic Violence Act, right? So there are so why should there have to be a separate queer and non-queer set of so 377 is queer and the rest are all non-queer. So we should be present with the Domestic Violence Act. We should be present in like the informal sector. So many trans people and non-binary people work in the informal sector. For instance, beauty parlors. For instance, they work as helping hands to truck drivers, work as cooks in roadside dhabas, right? And are farmers. So where are we in all these farming laws? Where are we in all these domestic violence and dowry? Like, so there are so many surrogacy, adoption, the way the idea of family is constructed. So instead of being getting ghettoized in 377 and as like marriage, we should just be everywhere. And I think that is where the conversation should be, and it's happening. But sadly, as Gaurav was pointing out, a major dominant funded NGOs are kind of advocating for inclusion under the Hindu Marriage Act. In fact, today we are speaking on 25th February. the government is supposed to respond formally to a Delhi High Court petition where they are going to talk about if same gender marriages can be part of the Hindu Marriage Act. So so there are a lot of tensions around that.
Yeah.
What sorry, you are talking about homonationalism. Can you please just in two or three sentences?
I think Shayon would be better. He's a better scholar on gender and sexuality studies. But then I think it was a term used in the West, and then obviously we now understand it in our context, is that how a particular political ideology is developed, you know, and like the whole idea of homonationalism was that to criminalize someone, you know, from the marginalized, you know, on some basic markers of identity and target. So that was the idea. But then here we have to also look at that how homonationalism is invoked, what Shayon has said, you know, that also to target particular, like if I am a Dalit queer woman, and if I am a upper caste queer woman from the urban center, like how the law will address my existence as a citizen of the country. So yeah, Shayon, you want to add?
Yeah, just if 2 minutes. So basically, you know, like just giving a couple of examples, like this whole petition that is in the Delhi High Court right now, and they are saying that Hinduism is a very liberal religion, and therefore we should be getting recognition under the Hindu laws, like the Hindu Code Bill, the Hindu family, and all of that. The implication of that is the minority religion is not accepting enough of homosexuality. So it is only because majoritarian idea is Hindu, that is why all kinds of minorities can find space and acceptance in it. And the minority religion, particularly Muslim, those who practice Islam, they are the rigid and the conservative ones. So, you know, always creating this other who is deviant, who is not accepting enough. And because currently in our, like in India right now, we have this majoritarian fascist ideology that's kind of sweeping across the media, like political landscape. So the idea is that like under the Sanatan Dharma, everybody finds acceptance and the rest are outsiders. So there was this very prominent Brahmin trans leader, Lakshminarayan Tripathi, who gave this statement a couple of years back saying that she's going to create this whole Hijra battalion, which is going to wipe out Pakistanis from our borders. So, you know, so that directly speaks to the idea of how sexuality and nationalism come together and religion, right? And religion being the Hindutva, like the majoritarian religion. So, and how it all comes together to create this dominant.
All of this boils down to power politics, right? So.
Yeah, and because in my during this current project that I'm doing, you know, I have chosen Varanasi because I stay in Varanasi these days. And what Shayon is saying, this is exactly what the many Hindu queer guys or MSM, you know, men having sex with men or bisexual men, they would just say that, look at the Hindu religion. We are so accommodating. The Muslims or the mullahs are the ones who are so rigid. They are anti-homosexuality. And then I ask them that, okay, if you are coming on a sex date with me or someone, then why are you married? Why don't you tell your wife that you are in an open relationship? Then he says that no, marriage, family, and pleasure world or my pleasure life are two very different things. I said, then do you understand that there is a word which exists in the dictionary called hypocrisy? You know, and they said, no, this is not. You have to understand that Hindu, I am a Hindu, so I understand you. But a Muslim will never understand you. A Muslim will always romance with you and leave you. I said, this is exactly what you do to others also. So, yeah.
Debelina, do you have a different set of experiences as a queer woman?
We're actually at 7:55. 5 minutes that is left. Can I talk about? No, I haven't faced. I'm very lucky that I haven't faced any, you know, adverse things, like maybe in school 1 or 2 instances, but No, not in family, not in my university days. None. Maybe I was very lucky in this regard.
Deblina, there's a question that actually I think you should address because we've talked about it, which is from Samta Biswas. She says that I may have missed a specific part of the discussion, but why does this film have an A certificate? And I should tell you, 2 of Deblina's films have unfortunately got an A for certificate, which really limits the amount of screenings it can have. Yes, but she got funding from Films Division. Yeah, Deblina. Yeah.
So yeah. So as I was telling you jokingly that the day that I may be the only documentary filmmaker in this country who has been awarded an A certificate by the censor board for both my films. I mean, with two of my films, I have gone to censor board and they have given me a certificate on this subject. So maybe, do you know anyone, Sandha, that who has got A for making documentary films in their consecutive 2 films? So yeah, the reason must be the subject of these films, sexuality, or to be more precise, homosexuality. In fact, the censor board of, CBFC Kolkata wrote, the film is based on homosexuality and its social recognition and as such is not fit for minor viewing.
Yeah.
So that was their comment on that film, on why, they have given the A certificate. So we have to remember that this happened after, the historical judgment by the Supreme Court on 6th December 2018. And we had gone there in 2019, April, exactly.
Yeah.
So even if the law changes, the society doesn't change.
Yeah.
2 individuals, there are signatures of 2 individuals, the, what do they say? The regional, the head and someone, 2 individuals. So occupying a government sanctioned post, viewed the film and its theme, not on the basis of legality, but there may be personal prejudices, no?
Personal prejudices, playing
Yeah.
state, not having to answer difficult questions. Yeah, that's again the position of the state.
And the documentary was, created entirely on the basis of conversation. There was no scene of nudity, no like that, kind of words or sentences, but they have just.
May I just quickly read out some comments that have come out in one
Please.
question? Would be Srinivas Murthy says the film is educative without being preachy. Well done. Rama Govindarajan says, I am a proud mom of a delightful gay young man. I don't have a question, but I congratulate all of you on a great film.
Thank you.
Rishabh Singh Jain says, in your personal experience, what examples of marriage rituals among couples in the queer community have you seen that have broken the heteronormative structure of an Indian marriage ceremony? Anyone?
I think I will see when Gaurav marries one of those men from Varanasi.
See, the point is that
You should have that wedding in an akhada.
Oh God. And so Rishabh is my student, and he actually asked this question to me, and I said, please ask this question to Debolina and others also. It's actually an interesting question. So suppose if we want to really have a ritualistic marriage, what are the, and rituals are sexist, they are very heteropatriarchal. So what are the rituals we will follow? I have a gay friend from JNU who is not in JNU anymore. He's studying abroad. So he said that if I get married, I will marry near a river bank, like maybe Saraswati or Narmada. And I said, is there any particular? He's a Sanskrit studies guy. So he gave me some explanation. So he said, no, I want to have a particular location, more nature oriented, something naturalistic setting or something like that.
So ढूंढ के रखना in Varanasi near the Ganga and with a picturesque background?
I think it's I think if I bribe a priest, I will also have a Vedic marriage, you know. Whatever in whatever capacity and way I want, I can have it. Even in the middle of Ganga, I think I can just have the marriage also. It's all about money after all. But I don't think we have any other. We don't have imagine any ritual for queer couples getting married or exchanging vows. I don't think we have done it. Maybe we have to really think, you know. Maybe Shayan and I and Debolina and Sandhya and all of us can think imaginatively with others that, you know, how should we?
I really feel like the whole institution of marriage has become a mirror of Bollywood in our country, and that it's so ingrained that we all just aspire to that one idea of romance, of marriage and ceremony.
And interestingly, you know, the digital media like Netflix and Amazon, they're promoting, right? Like as we speak, on Saturday, a new series has begun.
Yes. So much again boils down to money, like he's saying, so much money to be made on this subject.
Yeah.
Well, we are at 8:01, and I'm going to ask the audience any final questions. Anybody else has some?
We have one from Harshit Singh, Sandhya.
Is that? Am I missing it? Sorry, I have moved on to answer. Okay, yes, there's a question. You actively critiqued monogamous institutions and relationships in this film at certain aspects. Did you come across or document any poly or open relationships? How do they stand in India with the ongoing march for same-sex marriage rights?
I think Debolin is not here, but then I don't know, Shayan, maybe you can also pitch in. I don't think we have documented, like, you know.
I know several people who are in poly arrangements, and I have been in poly arrangement before. But the thing is that the question here then becomes, is everything about recognition and rights? Because then there is a certain contradiction there, right? Like the idea of being in a polyamorous relationship or set of relationships is about breaking the norm, right? And getting recognition from the state is a norm. So is someone who is in a polyamorous arrangement, would that person seek state recognition?
So Debolina, the question you missed is that you've actively criticized. Oh, I think she's gone again. Okay. Yeah. Is there any last comment that either of you would like to make before we close?
Maybe the film needs a sequel, which is going to be about the rituals that the question was talking about.
I think the question I had is, did either of you find a partner? And I was very curious what's happening in everybody's life. Yeah, maybe that could be in the sequel. Yeah.
Partners
and if I ever get married, like if I ever be with a guy, I think it will be all with Lal Salam and yeah.
वो तो हमें पता है.
You know. So like everyone, you know, Sandhya, I have talked several times this thing that I really want the workers and now also the farmers union, of course, the leaders to hold a queer flag. And I think that would be really a fantastic moment for us when they will recognize us as potential friends, allies, or whatever, you know. And yeah, a marriage should have all these people coming together. Thanks, Vikalp, like Sandhya and Raghu for organizing this.
Yes, thank you, Vikalp. Thank you, Sandhya. Thank you, Raghu.
I think my final comment again is that the film is available to watch at the BIC website till Sunday, 21st of February. So all of you who've come and attended us and watched us here today, please share the word, spread the word so that this message gets across. Not message, but just this film. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks.